Taniel, I'm so glad to see you today. Thank you for being with us. Um, I would love to find out why you are so passionate about coaching.
Yeah, happy to share about that. I think primarily it's because coaching and mentorship more broadly has just played such a big role in my life, and I've received a tremendous amount. As a first generation American, my parents worked incredibly hard and were incredibly well intentioned, but just weren't equipped to sort of kind of guide me in this American lifestyle and how to go through college, and even the thought of applying to grad school was never on their radar. So the mentors that I did have kind of fundamentally transformed my life, and um, I really appreciate that relationship I've had with them, and I've continued to have those with them. And I feel like I kind of get that same experience when I'm coaching different applicants, kind of getting to know their story. And if I can play a small role in shaping their story and kind of guiding them through this, what can be often be a daunting process,
Yeah.
it's incredibly rewarding.
And I often feel like it's a lot about walking in the journey with them, right? Like it's not, it's like you're in it together. It's definitely, I feel like it's a side by side thing.
Totally. I think it's like really digging deep into their stories and understanding their motivations, and um, kind of getting beyond that superficial level, which is easy to stay at that level if you don't take that time to be introspective.
It's interesting. We talk about that a lot, like peeling back the onion, one more layer, and it's hard. It's really it takes time
Yeah,
and energy and
especially when you're so busy working and you don't have that time to like sit back and like really reflect. I think that times of reflection is a huge privilege, and with the go
yeah.
go go, we don't do enough of it.
Um, I am so interested in what you think is your coaching superpower. If I were to say to you, what is like the one or two things that you feel like you really bring to your clients?
Yeah, I think it's related to what we were just talking about. It's really about pushing the folks that I work with to like dig deep into their past and find links that they didn't necessarily know existed. I think there are many individuals who often take for granted how their life experiences and sometimes what they might consider trivial from a business school application perspective have actually played a really, really important role in shaping their journey and shaping their decisions to date. And can actually prove to be very valuable and memorable context for the reader. So kind of again going back to like not being superficial and really like exploring deep within to see like what are the life experiences I've had that have led me to this point, and then how have they shaped what I want to do going forward.
And I feel like sometimes students are surprised, like they gloss over a certain part of their life that was really
Totally.
impactful. And then you're like, wait a minute, you really could be using this in your story. And so I think it sounds like you were particularly good at helping to uncover what those things are.
Yeah, and that's why I often encourage clients to like go back as far as your childhood. Like, we might not use anything from there. One, it's helpful context for me, to, understand your story more broadly. But you'd often be surprised. There are some things that you can draw from there that will be really important and ultimately, really memorable for the reader.
You've had such great success working with clients since you've been involved in coaching. Do you have a favorite science client success story? One that you felt was, not necessarily, I'm not saying that, oh, they got into every school they applied to, but one where you really felt like it was a good fit, a good match for them.
Yeah. There's one that always jumps to mind. I kind of often reference this anecdote in a way to encourage clients to sort of be a bit bolder with what they can talk about. There was one client in particular, she had a passion for fintech, and acknowledging fintech as a medium for democratizing financial literacy and access to a broader population. She had mentioned that and acknowledged that about a quarter of Americans are either unbanked or underbanked.
Yeah.
And she understood that the work that she wanted to do to democratize financial access and literacy was often, found at the nexus of business and government. So I, as a joint degree student that studied at both HBS and HKS, was like really deeply connected to her goal and her mission. So she was really interested in the joint degree program as well and wanted to leverage that 3 year experience to develop the necessary toolkit and the knowledge to transition from her traditional banking career. So at first, she kind of explained her passion for her. She explained this passion by kind of sharing anecdotes about the market, but it didn't feel really personal at first. It really very much came across like a New York Times article, like incredibly informative. But I walk away kind of like desperate to know more about you. I wanted to know why it mattered to her specifically. This is actually kind of going back to my early example of like digging back into your childhood or digging back into earlier stages of your life of like, why do you care so much about this? And she shared this fascinating story that she kind of thought was really trivial about how her grandfather every weekend would take her to the bank, um, and to deposit a proportion or a portion of her allowance.
Mhm.
And through that experience, we take her to the bank, get her some ice creams. Obviously, she was looking forward to the ice cream.
Of course.
Very much, like looking back, her grandfather shared a lot of financial wisdom and financial prudence that she really internalized about the importance of saving and what that meant and what banking meant. And I think it wasn't until she got older that she realized how much of a privilege it was to have a grandfather like that, and
Yeah.
that not most people
Teaching
have a
her.
yeah, exactly, and not most folks have a grandfather who could do that for them, and realizing like how broken the financial system was for for so many people still. And by kind of exploring that story, it became a very memorable opening anecdote that I think like very much hooked the reader along. It gave her some backstory as to why it mattered to her, and was then also ultimately an anecdote that she can kind of circle back to at the very end, tying a cohesive narrative together. And long story short, she was admitted to the joint degree program and finished up not too long ago.
I love that story, and I love how it was like a thematic part that kind of
Mhm.
through in her childhood, and then probably as a young adulthood, and it's I think it's so impactful to have somebody help you figure out what that could be.
Mhm.
Like really going back, because you might discard it in the heat,
Yeah,
like, oh, here's a memory, here's a memory, here's a memory. But it sounds like you were really able to say to her, look, this could be something that's going to really be important to share.
because I think people, you haven't applied to business school before, so you don't really understand the boundaries of what you can talk about. So, like, can I really talk about my grandpa? Like, why does HBS care about my grandpa? Um, but the answer is like oftentimes yes. You'd be surprised of the kind of boundaries, or how often you can stretch the boundaries of what topics are permissible.
Do you think that that's related to what your top piece of advice would be for admissions candidates?
Yeah, I think I kind of mentioned this earlier as well, but I think it's really important to take the time to be introspective,
Mhm,
to
mhm.
not be afraid to be vulnerable in parts of in the application that allow it. I think ultimately business schools really want to understand and get to know the whole individual, show who you are as a person, not just who you are as a professional. So in this case, like, with the example I just shared, like instead of just talking about her career and talking about the market, which kind of comes across as very much her professional side, like really showing who she is as a person, the experiences that she lived, the people that she knew. Because I think if you just focus on the professional, it's often difficult for the reader to feel deeply connected or emotionally invested in someone. So my top advice is like take a moment to like detach from your professional self, which I think you often feel like you need to present to a business school, but really like think about how you can show a holistic sense of you.
And then sometimes that's hard, but I appreciate like that step back, that detachment, if, as you said, not just like
Mhm.
what you've achieved professionally, like this job, this promotion, but really like deep down. I like to
Yeah,
call it the origin story. you
yeah, very much that. Let your recommenders like boast about how awesome you are as a professional,
know.
and you need to paint the other side of that.
So, Taniel, I know that you have an MBA and you have
Hmm.
a joint degree as well, and you were a 2+2
Hmm.
candidate. You've got a lot in your business school background. What are some of the things that you feel the process or the experience brought to you? And I know this is a multi-layered question, but as you now look back on your degree and your experiences, what are a couple of things that you feel were really impactful for your time in that program?
Yeah, I would say I would break this up into two parts. I think I would one talk about the program itself, and then two talk about what the benefits or what I value most about business school after having graduated.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, I think the first is it's really an opportunity just to like it's unlike undergrad where business schools might not like to hear this, but your grades don't really matter. It's really about making the experience your own.
We'll make
Um,
sure that no academic deans are listening to this discussion.
yeah, I mean it's important to do well, but it's also like I think really important to do well in the classes that matter to you,
Mhm.
right? Like there's
Yeah.
obviously the social side that's really important, and everyone would be remiss if they didn't focus on the social side. So I'll focus on I think the social side is easy to focus on, so I'll focus on the academic side here, where it's really making the most like so instead of applying yourself equally to all your classes, like what are the classes that matter most to you, And in my case, there are a few professors I really wanted to get to know. I had worked briefly in government at the White House, and one of my professors it was a former cabinet member of the Obama White House, and she was my entrepreneurship professor. And I knew that I wanted to get on her good side and be on her good graces. I think one, there was a connection already from my being a White House alum, but then two, like I knew she'd be a valuable connection moving forward. So I really applied myself to that class and got to know that professor really, really well. It's really about being thoughtful about how you, because business school is like it's a valuable 2 years that will just fly by. So how can you take stock of the many things that are happening, and I think kind of project, where do you want to be at the end of it, and what are the steps and experiences you need to take advantage of to get there. And the second part would be like after graduating. I would say like the most valuable thing was really the community.
Yeah.
I've made some of my closest friends through my time in the joint degree program. I think of sort of the 3 years as like college, but you're now much more mature and much more intentional about the types of friendships you want to walk away with.
Sure.
So it's this lifelong community, and it's kind of what I like to think about these members of my personal life board of directors. I often turn,
I love
yeah,
that. I love that.
yeah, these are like incredibly smart, hardworking people, and I often turn to this, quote unquote, board to discuss like all aspects of my life. So not just my professional life, but like my family, my relationships, and both the highlights and the lowlights, and it's been incredibly valuable.
I am in love with that idea. I feel like I should go out and get a board of directors for my life. I think
Yeah,
great idea. So anything else that you think that folks might want to know about you? I mean, I've just so enjoyed our conversation and getting to know you through the process, but is there anything else that you think that students should know? I know you have an incredible international background.
yeah. I've run both like I've experienced both traditional and non-traditional parts, I guess, of the kind of business school path. In that I've spent some time in finance, I spent some time in consulting, but I've also spent some time in the public sector working for the city of New York and then working in federal government. So I feel like I have a good understanding of those who are interested in one sector or the other, or being at
Or both.
at the nexus of both. Yeah. In addition to that, like I particularly gain or draw a lot of energy from working with individuals who either come from LGBTQ plus backgrounds, or those who come from first generation backgrounds, or those who kind of have overcome a lot of hardship to get to where they are.
Mhm.
So if you have like a great story, I love to work with you because I just want to be able to like take that story and mold it and really like help you put your best foot forward. So no, I'm excited to work with the many folks that come through Fortuna.
Great. Well, Taniel, thank you so much for your time today. It's always a delight to see you.
Yeah, you as well.
And we look forward to getting a chance to chat again. Be well, and I'll talk to you
Thanks.
soon.
Have a
Thanks.
good one.